Hi, welcome to the Psych Pod. I'm Luke Parrish, and we are going to be discussing, discovering, and debating a variety of topics throughout psychology. The first topic we're going to look at on the first episode is nature-nurture, one of the most sought-after debates that there ever was in psychology. Are we born intelligent? Do we learn to be aggressive? These are some of the questions that we're going to discuss and debate with our guest on the first week's episode, which is Hollie. Hope you enjoy the episode. Okay, here we are. So we welcome Hollie to the first ever episode of the Psych Pod.
Ooh,
how are we doing, Hollie?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. So we are going to be talking today and getting some ideas about nature, nurture and your view. Mm-hmm. But first off, I'm sure everyone wants to know a little bit about you.
So as Luke said, my name's Hollie. I'm one of his students in psychology. I also study English and history here at the college. In terms of like videos and things that I've done before, I was involved with a student step in my first year, so I'm pretty used to doing things like this.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so you talk about the first year and the student step, did you say?
Student snap.
Student snap.
Student snap.
Tell us about the student snap.
So it was like these short mini videos. They were mainly like 2 minutes long. And basically, we just put them in tutors every week, and it would just be like on a topic like we've done videos like top 10 places to study in college, where to find the safeguarding team, things like that first year students probably wouldn't know when they come to the college.
That's good.
Yeah, fun little videos. We've interviewed Becky and Emma before as well, who are the vice principal and principal. So it was fun.
Shout out to them. So in that, it's be interesting in a minute. Actually, we might do a couple of top 10s, maybe a top 3 in a second. So you are obviously in my psychology class, obviously very intelligent, and I interviewed, didn't I?
Yes, you enrolled me at the college.
I enrolled you right at the time.
Yeah, you did.
And I just want to get a bit of a background for everyone about your kind of upbringing and your view on school and education.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of my upbringing, I just went to like a normal state school. It wasn't anything special. I mean, I loved my time there. I think I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't like the most successful school. Like it was more of an average sort of thing. I went to school in Bridgewater. But I think in terms of my upbringing, I did a lot of theatre. I was involved with like the community quite a lot. I was head girl. I always loved doing public speaking. I did lots of debating in secondary school. In terms of my views on education and intelligence and that sort of thing, I think for me personally, because I didn't necessarily have like the best start to school, so I was never in like the top sets. But I think for me, I just worked very hard to get to be into the top sets and things like that. So I was never really like deemed as like an intelligent, smart student. I remember in my secondary school, they always used to label them as like gifted and talented. Yeah. And I was never one of those students. But I just worked really hard, and like, especially in year 9, year 10 and year 11. And I think what made me want to become, or like work really hard to become like an intelligent student, or what would be deemed as an intelligent student, is one of my teachers. He was a very inspiring teacher. He worked like in different schools in the local area. And he was just one of these teachers that you just really liked. He was so enthusiastic and really wanted to teach students. And I think the school that I went to, a lot of students were deemed as not having like a future, or like they weren't deemed as being the most intelligent sort of thing. And I think sort of having him as my geography teacher, he really inspired me to like push myself and become like a better student. So I did, and then I just worked hard and got to where I am. So yeah.
Amazing.
Bit of a tangent, but
no, absolutely fine. It's really interesting to hear. And also, so you talked about that that was a secondary school.
Yes.
So what would you say in terms of influence, primary school, maybe parental influence or people at home? Like, what would you say?
I don't really know. I had really good primary school teachers. I really liked them. They were very enthusiastic. I think if I didn't have the sort of teachers I did in primary school, I definitely wouldn't be as confident. I was always involved with like a lot of productions, like I've already said. But I think in primary school, I had a really good choir teacher who I really liked. And I think she made me very outgoing. And I think just sort of the primary school that I went to, I was very involved with that sort of thing, which made me more outgoing. Yeah, enthusiastic.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. So when we're talking about the title of this podcast is nature versus nurture, and you mentioned intelligence a few times there, and you talked about hard working. So I suppose the ultimate question is, would you agree or disagree with the statement that you are born intelligent?
Oh, okay. So I would agree to a certain extent. I think you do have to be born with intelligence. Like some people are just naturally intelligent because that's the way they're born. But I don't think like just because you're born intelligent, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be the most successful person, or it doesn't mean that you're going to be like the next Bill Gates or the next, I don't know, like Steve Jobs. Like just because you're naturally born intelligent, it doesn't mean that you're going to be sort of the most successful person. But I think it is the sort of the hard work that then makes that person more intelligent, if that makes sense. Like I think they have to be sort of intelligent, you have to have sort of some biological sort of aspect to it. But I think there has to be hard work involved. But with that being said, I do think that in terms of intelligence, you could be like the most hardworking person. You could be like, you would work so many hours a week to get that good grade in psychology or that good grade in whatever subject. But I think natural talent in a certain area would definitely trump or overrule hard work.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense. Like I know some people that are just naturally smart at maths and that they've always been that way. And then some people who work really hard and obviously they are still talented and very intelligent at maths, but they will never like get the better grade than the person who's just naturally intelligent.
Okay. So throughout school, can you think of an example? You mentioned before about different sets and you weren't always in the top set. Can you think of again, you don't have to name names, but any particular person that stands out as they were always really, really, really just get us everything? Maths?
So there was this boy in my math class. This is when I was in like the top set in maths. And eventually when I got moved up in, I think it was like year 9 or something. Okay. When I moved up into the first set, there was this boy in my math class, and I always remember he would be like, he never put any hard work or like dedication into schoolwork at all. No. But for some reason, he would always be the best in the year group for maths. But like no one knew how, because it's not as if like he was putting in extra work or he was doing the homework. Like he could do none of that, but he would still be more naturally intelligent at maths than anyone else.
Do you think he did work but just didn't say he did, or do you think he just would get concepts so easily?
That's actually quite funny, because I do feel like there's some people that say no, I don't do any revision at all, but then you see them in the exam and they're absolutely like shredding through it, and it's like, okay, you're definitely just saying that you didn't revise. But no, like he generally was, I don't want to say slacker, but like he generally was a slacker. Like he would be the type of person that would sit at the back of the classroom, like the disruptive people in my math class, who there was quite a few, and so he would sat with that sort of group, and he would always mess around, but he would still be so good at maths. And to this day, I still never understand how he could just do that, because maths does not come naturally to me. Like I have to put in a lot of hard work to get a good grade in maths, but then he's just sat there doing nothing, and it was so frustrating for me, because I would always want like the good grade and that sort of thing, and then there he would just doing nothing, rock in, just do the exam, walk out, do nothing else.
I think that's the same throughout all time, really, because we had similar people even when I was in school ages ago that was just, they would just wouldn't really listen, rock in and then do. So if in terms of to answer your own question, or to answer our own question, then if you had to put one on it, would you say nature or nurture for intelligence?
Well, I think I'm not a psychologist, not clinically like trained or whatever, but I think from my experience and what I've witnessed, I would say nature, because I think the example that I've just given, sort of my experience, I think nature definitely trumps nurture for intelligence. Okay,
but as I said, we will go with that as your kind of answers. And
I'm not saying you can't work hard and get good grades.
But because also you've just given a lot of examples of where you yourself, who may appear to some of the other people in the college, and you are, as I said before, an intelligent person, but that's come through hard work.
Yeah.
So why are you not siding with nurture?
I think it's good question. I think it's just because, like, even though I worked hard to get to where I am, I'm definitely not as near as intelligent as other people in the class. Like, although I could be regarded as intelligent, I definitely am not as naturally as intelligent as other people in our class. And I think sort of that, and also the experiences that I've witnessed throughout school, like some people just sort of have that natural ability in a subject. Like I worked really hard in English, and I ended up getting both 9s in English language and literature, but that's because of my hard work. But some people, it just came naturally to them. I had to put in the effort and I had to put in the work, but some people didn't.
Okay. Yeah, right. Cool. Okay, right. So you've got nature then for your the first area, so to speak. If we were to move into something maybe more to do with, say, mental health, so something like schizophrenia, depression, OCD, etc. where would you sit on the fence with that? Would you be on the fence? Because as I said, you did go with nature.
Yeah.
But so do we think we're born with these things, or do you think they can develop?
Okay, so I think for mental illnesses, I think, yet again, okay, so actually controversial. I'm going to go nurture, but I'm going to explain like the nature side of it first.
Okay.
So I think in terms of nature, you do have to be born with certain genes. So for example, with schizophrenia, you have to be born with a certain gene to sort of have it.
Yeah.
It's like the whole genetically predisposed to having that sort of gene, sort of getting schizophrenia. But I think there has to be a trigger in the environment for that gene to sort of come into play, sort of cause the illness.
Yeah.
So say with just using schizophrenia as an example. And I think although like say like people in the family may have schizophrenia or may suffer from schizophrenia, the person, like the child who has the gene, may not develop schizophrenia because they haven't been triggered by maybe a traumatic event or something in their life that sort of causes that gene to then come into play and then sort of cause that mental illness. I think there is a really big aspect of biology and sort of genetic influences that causes mental illnesses. But then I think even if a person doesn't have that gene, they can still develop the mental illness. Like they can still develop and have depression. They can still have anxiety. Like I think with certain illnesses, so we've studied schizophrenia. I think that is a more biological sort of illness that develops. But I think with things like social anxiety, depression, those sort of things, I think that's more of a nurture and sort of the environment that person is brought up in.
Okay, so when you talk about nurture, then for say, depression or OCD or something like this, what is it that's making you say nurture? What are the influences that you're
so
describing?
I think for a person, it's going to be different for everybody, but I think it's sort of the personal circumstance that the person or the individual that develops this mental illness finds himself in. Like it could be that they're sort of in the environment where people are sort of emphasizing this or putting this low mood on them, and that then causes them to be sort of in this depressed state or develop depression in that sort of case. Or sort of with social anxiety, maybe they're brought up in a family, maybe it's not a gene, but maybe their family or their family environment causes them to act in a certain way. So maybe they're more shy and more anxious because of their sort of upbringing and that sort of thing.
Okay, right. So at this moment, you kind of seem you're seeing it from kind of both sides, but you're settling on nature for intelligence.
But I think it's more nurture for mental illness.
Health. Okay, right. So the deciding factor then, I suppose, is there's a couple of things I just want to touch on. So the next thing I wanted to kind of move on to was aggression. So aggression and anger in individuals. What's your stance on that?
So I think for aggression, my first sort of initial things, I think would be quite controversial to say that, oh, it's nature that causes aggression, because I think that could be used as an excuse in terms of, say, like a person hits someone or like there's sort of some kind of assault. Then if you're saying, oh, it's nurture that causes a person to act in this way, then that could be like an excuse in terms of if it went to like court or something like that. Like that could be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Controversial. I think maybe a bit problematic is the word I'm looking for. Like it could be, oh, the reason why they act in this way is not because it's their free will of doing it. It's because they have the gene that makes them acting this way. Like I think that could be quite a controversial thing, and sort of that wouldn't be great in eyes of the law, because the person still willingly did the assault or the hit or whatever happened. But because they have this genetic predisposition, it's not their fault. It's the fact that they have the gene that causes them to act in this way.
Okay. So what would you say then is, if you looked at sort of like a famous case of, let's say, Charles Whitman that we looked at before, would you say in terms of his aggression and his kind of rage episodes, as you're aware, if people aren't aware, you have the amygdala and the tumor, but then you have his upbringing. So what would you say was maybe the biggest influence for him?
So I think in his case, I'm not going to say it's the same for every single case, but I think in the case of Charles Whitman, it was more biological because of the amygdala in the brain. He had a tumor, I believe, if I remember correctly. It was 1966. I think he went to Texas University and shot at a bunch of people. Is that, I'm thinking of the right lines?
That's correct.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. I think in his sort of case, because of the tumor that he suffered, although his upbringing definitely does play an influence into sort of the events that took place, but I think because of the amygdala and the tumor that he had in his brain, I think that sort of caused to act him in this way. And I think you have to sort of think, if that wasn't the case, if he didn't have that sort of tumor in the brain, would he act that way? And I guess if you sort of look at his previous characteristics, would that sort of indicate that he wouldn't act in that way? I know his upbringing was definitely not like considered like a normal upbringing. Yeah,
it's a mixture as well, like you said before, that maybe he had that, but then he needed the trigger or some sort of environmental factor as well. Okay, so as I said before, you've got nature for intelligence, nurture for mental illness,
bit of both. I
Bit
don't
of
know. I
both.
guess it depends on the person, because I think with nurture, it's very hard to say there's like a cause and effect. But with when you're looking at more of the nature side, there is more cause and effect, because you can have like fMRI scans, those kind of things. If there's more evidence to prove that this is cause the effect, or like the act or whatever. But with saying nurture, you can't really establish a cause and effect, although there's like a correlation. That could sort of, okay, so this upbringing could explain why a person would choose to act in this way, but it's not, you can definitely say that that's the case.
Okay. Yeah. So just the final kind of couple of things I was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the theatre
Yes.
briefly, and this is something that's going to happen hopefully in a later episode with a couple of people that you know.
Yes.
Molly and Lily. And they're going to be hopefully talking a little bit about performance and are we born to perform and that kind of stuff.
That sounds fun.
But I just wanted to get your take on that, just to compare with them when they hopefully come on.
Oh, I don't know, because I think I started performing at such a young age, so like it's not been drilled into me, but I think because my parents like put me in theatre classes, they put me in dance classes, that sort of thing. So I think in that sort of way, I was sort of not drilled to perform, but just because I enjoyed being in that sort of environment, I sort of enjoy performing and like going on stage. But I think with some people, so obviously some people can put their children in theatre class or put them in a theatre group, but they can absolutely hate it. But I think you just have to be the type of person to thrive. And I don't know why or what makes a person the person that would thrive in that environment and what wouldn't make them thrive. But I think, I don't know, it's a really interesting thing to consider, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think they're going to give their opinions.
Yeah, I'm intrigued what they'd say.
What would you? So you hinted there a little bit towards nurture in terms of because your parents put you in that thing.
But that is to say, if I was like a normal, like I could have gone either way. Like on any other day, I could have absolutely hated it. It could just be because of the circumstance that I was in. Maybe I was in a really good mood that day and I really enjoyed the class, or it's the friends that I made that made me like theatre so much.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. So what's the latest theatre thing that you're involved in?
So we just did a charity show in my theatre group. We did a charity show in January, which was to raise money for dementia. We raised £3,600, which was really cool. Yeah, it was great. But we're doing Shrek in June, so I'm looking forward to that. So
cool. So do you have to do auditions for that?
Yeah, we did. So we had auditions on Sunday, last Sunday, which was fun.
How did it go?
Yeah, they were good. Thank you.
Brilliant. Right, yeah, maybe we'll have a little comment section to see what character people think
have a
you
guess
got.
what character I am.
Brilliant.
God.
Cool. Okay, so I suppose my final question is, you said intelligence was nature. There will be a lot of people who hopefully listen to this and watch this that will completely disagree.
Yeah.
So what would you say as your kind of final mark just on intelligence to someone that said it's not nature at all?
Oh, okay. Well, I think it is. You can't just be intelligent. Like you can't, if a person, although there's like hard work and training involved with sort of being intelligent, I think you do generally have to have that sort of gene or that sort of predisposition brought up in like a very intelligent family, that genes passed down in your family makes you sort of intelligent, or makes you the kind of person that would go out and put the hard work in to make someone intelligent, I think would be what I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right. Well, thank you very much, Hollie.
No
for
worries.
Your time.
Thank you.
And fingers crossed. As I said, some people can maybe say their opinions on what you think. I did say at the beginning we'll do a top 10. Maybe we won't do top 10. Maybe we'll do top 3 of something. So let's go for. Okay. So just on the topic of psychology. Or top 3 psychologists that you say is in terms of influence they've had on you as a person, or actually no, let's just go. Let's make broader. Top 3 people that have had an influence on you.
Oh, okay, interesting. I would say my geography teacher from secondary school. I always thought he had a really good influence on me.
As in number 1. Or maybe think of the 3.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the 3. I'm not necessarily like ordering them. I don't know. My geography teacher. Oh gosh, that's really hard. I'd say anyone in my theatre group that's really involved. I think they've had definitely a big impact on my upbringing. Yeah. So like my theatre, but that's not really a person. But as a collective, like theatre people. I don't really. I don't really know for another person. I'm trying to think. I could say you're a very good influence. Because I'm sat next to you.
I was going to say, I was thinking that wasn't preloaded.
No.
But no, okay, right. So we've got those two then. Geography teacher, theatre group, maybe me, but theatre group. What about psychologists then? Who do you think is the biggest influence of your views, maybe? Or do any stand out as being like ones that you think, yeah, what they've done is really good, or...
I don't know. I wouldn't say it's like I necessarily thought their theories were good, but I always thought Pavlov stood out to me because it was the first sort of psychologist we studied.
Yeah.
And he really stood out to me. And I can really remember like the facts about him. And I thought he was really interesting. And I liked his theory of classical conditioning. And I like how like in different sort of topics that we come back to him. So like in attachment as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really liked his work.
Good.
I thought it was interesting. And I like sort of comparing his theory and then Skinner's theory of operant conditioning.
Yeah, nice. Right. Well, as I said, thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you.
And we look forward to people's comments on
guess what character I am in Shrek.
And comments actually on the nature nurture side. But I think you say very kind of reasoned arguments and obviously say both sides.
I don't know. I think I would sort of say the opposite of what people would normally say. Like I think with intelligence, people would probably say nurture, but I think it's nature. Do you know what I mean?
Do you do that because just to be different?
No, it's actually generally what I think, not just because I'm trying to be difficult.
Brilliant. Cool. Right. Well, thank you very much, Hollie.
No worries.
And
thank you.
yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.